Toji Fushiguro, and yes, that's what we're calling him. He denounced the Zenin name, the scourge of the Zenin clan. Let's give this man his due respect. The total badass, the might guy of Jujutsu Kaisen, it is Toji Fushiguro. And we're going to be discussing today just how strong this man is. But before we get onto anything, I do need to do some table setting. This video will contain spoilers of the most recent episode of Jujutsu Kaisen Season 3. I don't believe that they're major spoilers, but if that's something that you guys are really against, please go and watch the episode, then come back here right away. Don't even close the YouTube tab. Keep it open, and I want you to come back here so we can talk about Toji and just some of the new information that was revealed about him. Now, some people might be like, Jack, you're smoking crack right now. There was one line dropped about him. You're reading way too much into this. But we need to talk about the line, because this is badass. We find out from Tengen that Toji is someone that was able to defy fate and existed outside of fate's realms of possibilities, which is wild that he's kind of outside of fate's control. That doesn't, I'm going to say right away, that doesn't mean that he's the strongest character in the series bar no one. I'm not wanking him off that much. But it's an interesting part of his character that I think we need to discuss. Because Tengen mentions that throughout the past 1,000 years, there have been new and new Star Platinum vessels and new and new Six Eye users. Now, what that means is that every generation, people inherit this power. Every generation, they'll fight against, who, the big bad. They will, a lot of the time, overcome and beat Kenjaku, let's call him. But the most recent edition of this tradition, if you want to call it that, Gojo, and I'm blanking on the girl's name, the one that got killed by Toji of all people, there was a wrench thrown in the plans here because of Toji Zenin. Because this man existed outside of fate's control because of his heavenly restriction. Yes, it doesn't just give him super goddamn buff muscles, doesn't give him super speed and super senses. And did it give him the aura, or was that something he was born with? We've seen the Zenin clan family members. Maki she's dripping with aura. Same with Megumi. So I think it might just be a Zenin clan feature, as much as he hates the Zenin clan. But because of his heavenly restriction, he exists outside the bounds of fate. Meaning the fateful encounter of the Six Eyes user and the Star Plasman vessel and Kenjaku was broken because of Toji. Now, what does that mean for his character? Does that mean that he's, anti-fate level of strength? No, of course not. No rational person would come and try and preach that. Now, I'm not known for my rationality, but I do reckon that does need to be established. We're not putting him in stratosphere levels of power. But the fact that he was outside of fate's control, what could that have meant for him in the story of Jujutsu Kaisen? We're going to be discussing a little bit of his personality and a couple of his fights. And the first one we're going to jump into, where this new information that being outside of fate's control could be prevalent, is in his second fight with Gojo. Because we see what he does in the first fight. He blitzes Gojo. He takes him down. He reads the man like a book. He's planned 5 moves ahead, and he outsmarts Gojo. And we're going on a tangent already. We're discussing it. His intelligence and his strategic brilliance is something that's not spoken about enough. He's like, you think of him as like a musclehead, this kind of battle maniac, like a Kenpachi Zaraki from Bleach. But the man sits down and plans in advance how he's going to take on someone like Gojo. And not only does he plan it all out, his plans come to fruition. He's Shikamaru with his shogi board, manipulating Gojo into where he needs to go before he can stab him with the inverted spear of heaven to take Gojo down and essentially kill him. If it wasn't for plot armor BS, this man would have got the W on Gojo and put out the Six Eyes users out of existence there. But he doesn't do that in his second fight. Now, why doesn't he do it? Is it pride? Very possibly. He kind of seems to be going off the high that he just took down the poster child, the architect, not the architect, the archetype of the Jujutsu Kaisen sorcerers. For better and worse, even though Gojo wouldn't want to be seen as this, he is the figurehead of the sorcerers from Jujutsu Kaisen. Toji has always had a vendetta against Jujutsu sorcerers. Most likely he was very much not treated well as a child in the Zenin clan, being born with no cursed energy. The story never goes into it, which I actually think is a very, very important key detail. It's a little bit like the Joker from Batman. You don't want to explore Toji's backstory too much because it kind of takes away the mystique from it. It lets the audience kind of decide, oh, was he getting abused there, or was he kind of, even maybe he was just much powerful than everyone else because of his heavily restriction that people were afraid of him. There's so many different possibilities there that us as the audience can kind of put on Toji ourselves, which I think's much more compelling with a character like Toji. But I'm getting sidetracked. All we know is that he had a vendetta against them and he wanted them to pay. He was literally known as the Sorcerer Killer. And I think getting the win on Gojo was essentially getting a W on all of Jujutsu Society. And I think Toji was running off this high of, I'm the man, I am untouchable, no one here can beat me. I can do whatever I want. If I wanted to, I can march my ass over to Tokyo and take them all down. And I think because of potentially, being mistreated by them, that level of knowledge of I've got one up on all you guys. I am better than you. It really was, pride cometh before the fall. He was running on the ego and the self-accomplishment, and what an accomplishment it was, of getting a win on Jujutsu Society. So when Gojo came back, Toji, in my opinion, let his pride get the better of him and decided to challenge Gojo. And we know this is a mistake because Toji himself kind of feels that something is off in the fight. He's like, what's going on? What's the matter with this guy? He's being too confident right now. And that, those spidey senses going off in the back of his brain, that's when he needed to be like, no, I'm not going to be drawn into this fight. That's not how I do this. I have a lot, even though I'm super powerful, I have a lot going against me. I don't have any cursed energy. I need to take a step back, plan this out. He's obviously got some new abilities. We need to suss out and analyze what he has, and then we can come hit him again, and we can take him out. That's what Toji needed to do. He doesn't do it. We know how it ends. Hollow purples him out of existence, and Toji ends up dying. And in his dying moments, he professes that he wants Gojo to essentially look after his son. That Megumi is going to be sold to the Zenin clan, and Gojo, please not. He doesn't ask Gojo to stop the Megumi being sold, but he knows Gojo's character enough, especially with how sharp his senses are. The man has amazing intuition to know that Gojo is probably going to step in and help Megumi out. So it was from a place of care, I reckon. Doesn't mean he's not a shitty father. He definitely is. He made my worst dads in anime list. Go check it out. If I remember, I'll chuck it up on the screen. But that was his dying moments. But if we do a what if, what happens if he does, take my advice and he bolted? He's seeing the crazed, junky look in Gojo's eyes, and he's like, yeah, I don't want anything to do with that, please. I'm getting out of here. Go back to do some gambling, think it over, and then go back to fight Gojo. With the new information of Toji being outside of Fate's control, could he have potentially just killed the user of the Six Eyes technique? Could he have, inadvertently even made Kenjaku's plans easier by being able to step in and take Gojo out? Because by the sounds of it, until Kenjaku decided to start sealing Gojo and Tengen away, it didn't seem like he could actually beat a user of the Six Eyes. That Fate would always allow the Six Eyes user to reach a level of strength that Kenjaku couldn't surmount. Even when he goes back and kills them as a child, it's like the Ashura and Indra cycle from Naruto. The reincarnation of that power will still come back into the world. But Toji was outside of that control and could actually do it, inadvertently helping Kenjaku. And we know that Toji would have hated Kenjaku. That would have been a great fight I would have loved to have seen. But I want you guys to let me know, do you think that Toji could have beaten Gojo? And by extension, do we then scale Toji over Gojo in terms of, potential there? A bit of Batman prep time, Usopp from One Piece prep time. Would he be able to take that to his advantage and be able to beat Gojo in a fight? It's something that's very interesting to think of, and I think he would have had a very good chance of doing it. Despite how strong Gojo gets, with the inverted Spear of Heaven and just his strategic brilliance, I think he would still be able to find a way to get through Gojo's defenses. Now, that could be just me, smoking copium there, but I reckon that I would kind of put him higher in terms of battle IQ and battle prowess. Gojo gets by a lot with his overwhelming power, but Toji's greatest ability is to turn that overwhelming power on its head, find the weakness through your defenses, and take you out. He's almost the worst opponent for anyone in Jujutsu Kaisen. Ironically, Yuji, in his full potential, probably has the best chance because Yuji fights on instincts as well. So he can kind of match. They're a little bit like Bakugo from My Hero Academia. They have very high battle Q awareness. Same with Luffy, a simpleton in day-to-day life, but a genius when it comes to combat. And that's what I get from people like Toji, and that goes a long way in a fight. Now, in terms of, who can destroy the biggest mountain, obviously Gojo is going to take that any time of the year. But I reckon it's a very interesting talking point, and I think that just with how easy he was able to get through the incompleted Limitless technique, I don't see any reason why, with enough time, and maybe even enhancing his own skills a little bit, why he couldn't beat a Gojo again. Now, it might be one of those situations where, once he beats, if he was able to beat Gojo, but Gojo didn't die, maybe after 2 or 3 times beating him, Gojo's power and just knowledge with his abilities would just get too insurmountable and he would be able to take Toji down. I could definitely see that as well. At the end of the day, it's all subjective and it's a hypothetical talking point of this preconceived idea of Toji could beat Gojo. In a proper Jujutsu Kaisen list, if I was listing them, Gojo would have to go above Toji just because of what we've been able to see from the plot. But while we're here, let's just go, we've talked enough about him being outside of Fate's hand. There's no 3 Greek fate goddesses with a string trying to cut. Toji's string can't be cut. And, we've gushed about that enough. I reckon it's a great little talking point for a post-mortem character that I just love to see, that I had to make a video on. But while we're here, let's talk about him a little bit more. He battled Suguru Geto, who is my favorite character from Jujutsu Kaisen, and absolutely destroyed him, no diff, which was amazing to see. That fight was spectacular. But there's not much to go on. He's just beating curse after curse. It was a highlight reel for Toji. And then just took out Geto. Took out Gojo, took out the Star Platinum Vessel, and then took out Geto. Just casually beating 2 special grade sorcerers and the Star Platinum Vessel, and just went on his merry way. The man completed the game in that arc, which was really, really cool to see. His fight with Dagon as he became, undead, essentially, a bit of a zombie. Are we scaling him as being able to repel instantaneous attacks? My Jujutsu Kaisen knowledge isn't as high as people that cover it religiously. To get my opinion on it, the best thing I can say is that it's probably a 10 to 15 greatest anime of all time for me. Doesn't crack the top 10, probably not too close to even cracking the top 10, but it is a phenomenal series. But I don't have I've read a little bit further ahead in the manga than where the season 3 is currently at, but not too much. I wasn't enjoying it as much as the anime, so I let it be, and I wanted the anime just to catch up and consume it in anime form. So you might be thinking, Jack, no, X, Y, and Z happened and he's not blocking instantaneous attacks. But he's using his playful cloud to take out all the piranha that's been instantly summoned on him. which is more impressive to me than like the big ones that he's carving through. But the way he's able to throw off instantaneous attacks is just incredible, and a speed feat and a reflex feat that is just freaking extremely impressive is all I can say. I don't power scale characters of this channel in terms of the way other people do, because I just find it a little bit nebulous, especially when it comes to speed. But yeah, it is an amazing feat nonetheless, and the way he just brutally manhandles Dagon, it's the biggest stomps in Jujutsu Kaisen type of thing. He shows up, the fight's none of his business whatsoever. He shows up and just beats his ass because he can. The fight with Megumi was great as well. I mean, it's such an iconic scene where he stomps his foot on the ground, the bunnies go flying, and then in slow motion he starts goddamn finger pistoling them all into buildings and just crushing them, and it's an insane scene. No. Here's the thing, I would love to say to you all guys, let's do Might Guy versus Toji Zenin, because I think they're the coolest characters in terms of like non-users of their series power scaling that get by on just brute strength. But let's face it, that's not a very fair fight. As much as you want to hype up Jujutsu Kaisen, at the very, very most, they're city block level opponents. You know, like I said, I don't get into power scaling too much, but with the feats that they see, Might Guy is literally bending time and space with a punch. But Toji's outside of Fate. Where does that rock up in power scaling? But either way, it would be a cool fight to base on principle. Maybe a fight if they bring it up that they have the same stats, and to see where that would go, which would be very interesting. Might Guy grabs up the nunchucks and Toji has his playful cloud. That would be an insane fight. Probably one of my most wanted fights in a crossover anime format, if that was a thing. But Toji, with his personality, we've gone over it a lot. We've gone over his intelligence and his strategic brilliance. We've gone over his pride and his misgivings with his clan. We've gone over the fact that, you know, despite being a bit of an aloof father and not the most responsible person, he obviously did care about his son somewhat. You know, he named him after the word blessing because he thought he was going to be blessed with so much promise, and he wanted him to go to the Zenin clan because he knows he wouldn't be mistreated the way that Toji presumably was. So, you know, the fact that he still does care about his son, I think, gives a lot of credence to his character of someone who isn't such a cold-hearted person that, you know, people, like, you can love Toji and still be like, you know, he was a bit of a softie in some way. He didn't handle things the best, but it definitely goes a lot to put an extra bit of sauce on Toji's character, which I absolutely loved. I would have loved to have seen more, not necessarily about his backstory with the Zenin clan, but how he met Megumi's mother. So I have to say Megumi's wife. That's a level of Oedipus complex that we don't need to get into. But that would have been cool because she apparently changed his ways, made him more mellow and stuff like that, which made him more willing to bring Megumi to the Zenin clan for his own betterment. But Toji Zenin is such an interesting character. I think I've gushed about him enough. The man stands outside the realms of fate. Even if it doesn't add anything to power scaling him, just put another level up in aura. Is Toji the biggest aura farmer in Jujutsu Kaisen? Him and Gojo, it's a bit of a toss-up. I kind of like Toji better. Just love his character design. So simplistic on the surface, but it does so much to carry his character. And, you know, that's my Toji video. I don't know what I'm going to... Is this a character analysis? Is it a power scaling video? Is it a chapter review? An episode review? Who knows? I've got a lot to think about in what I'm going to name this. But guys, I've been Jack Cypher. It's been a pleasure talking about Toji Zenin. The next video that is coming is Kimimaru from Naruto. So stay tuned if that's something that you guys would be interested in. Have a lovely night, everyone.